Emma nervously fingered the invitation. 10 years. A decade had passed since she last stepped foot in Westbridge High. Memories, both good and bad, swirled in her mind like autumn leaves in the wind. A sigh escaped her lips. It was time to face her past. The invitation was a splash of color against her dark desk, an unwelcome reminder of a life left behind. She had ignored the first one, tossing it carelessly into a drawer. But the second, arriving with a handwritten note from her old friend Sarah, was harder to dismiss. Sarah's words, filled with warmth and encouragement, tugged at Emma's heart. The years had treated Emma well. She had a successful career, a cozy apartment in the city, yet a persistent emptiness lingered within her. The familiar ache of loneliness, a constant companion. She glanced at the invitation once more, her name penned in elegant script.
As Emma contemplates the weight of her decision, the past and present begin to intertwine, setting the stage for a night that could change everything.
The drive to Westbridge was a blur. Emma found herself on familiar roads, passing by landmarks that held 1,000 stories. The old ice cream parlor where she and her friends used to hang out, the park where she had her first kiss. Each location sparked a memory, sweet and bittersweet. As she pulled into the school parking lot, a wave of nervousness washed over her. The high school seemed smaller than she remembered, yet strangely intimidating. Taking another deep breath, she grabbed her clutch and stepped out of the car. The sounds of laughter and chatter grew louder as she approached the gymnasium. A kaleidoscope of lights spilled out from the open doors, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Her heart pounded in her chest. Years of carefully constructed composure threatened to crumble.
Emma's journey through the familiar yet foreign landscape of her youth brings a mix of emotions to the surface, each step forward a reconciliation with her past.
The gymnasium was adorned with streamers and balloons, a valiant attempt to mask the familiar scent of sweat and teenage angst that still clung to the walls. A DJ blasted music from the stage, a mix of nostalgic pop songs and current chart toppers. The dance floor was alive with people. Some things never changed. She scanned the crowd, searching for a familiar face in the sea of unfamiliar ones. Sarah had promised to meet her by the refreshment table, a familiar landmark in this sea of memories. As she navigated her way through the throngs of people, snippets of conversations reached her ears, filled with boasts of success and carefully crafted narratives of their lives. Emma couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Their lives seemed so perfect, so put together. She, on the other hand, felt like an imposter, a fraud hiding behind a carefully constructed facade.
Amidst the revelry and reminiscences, Emma confronts the ghosts of her past, each encounter a step towards healing and understanding.
"Emma, you made it!" Sarah exclaimed, her smile as bright as ever. "I was starting to think you'd changed your mind." Sarah nodded in understanding. "I know what you mean. It's like stepping back into a time capsule. But it's good to be back, to reconnect with everyone." Her eyes twinkled mischievously. "Speaking of reconnecting, look who's here. S2. I almost did. It's a little overwhelming being back here after all this time."
Emma followed Sarah's gaze and her breath hitched. Standing by the punch bowl, deep in conversation with a group of people, was Jack. Time had been kind to him. He was even more handsome than she remembered, his eyes still holding that familiar twinkle. Time seemed to stand still as their eyes met across the crowded room. Memories flooded back, a bittersweet torrent of first love and heartbreak.
"Emma," he greeted, his voice sending a familiar warmth through her. "It really is you. I hardly recognized you."
"You haven't changed a bit," she replied, her voice catching slightly in her throat. It wasn't entirely true. He had changed, but for the better. The years had only intensified his charm, his eyes holding a depth she didn't remember.
They fell into an easy conversation, catching up on lost time. He told her about his life in Chicago, his career, his dreams. She listened intently, fascinated by the man he had become. As they talked, Emma found herself relaxing, the years melting away. Yet the shadow of their past, the unspoken words, lingered between them. The music shifted, a slow song filling the air. Couples, young and old, flocked to the dance floor, their bodies swaying in unison.
"Would you care to dance?" he asked, extending his hand towards her. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through her, awakening dormant butterflies in the pit of her stomach.
She hesitated, unsure if she was ready to take that step. The dance floor held a million memories. most of them laced with bittersweet joy and the lingering pain of their breakup. Yet the warmth in his eyes, the sincerity in his voice, was difficult to resist.
"All right," she conceded, placing her hand in his. As they stepped onto the dance floor, the crowd seemed to fade away, the music a distant hum. As the night wore on, Emma found herself drawn to Jack. They slipped away from the crowded gymnasium, seeking refuge in the quiet solitude of the school courtyard. The night air was cool and crisp, a welcome contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. They sat on a bench beneath a canopy of stars, the familiar scent of pine needles filling the air. Silence settled between them, comfortable and companionable. Emma traced patterns on the dusty ground, her mind awhirl with unspoken thoughts.
"What are you thinking about?"
She hesitated, unsure how to voice the emotions swirling within her. "I'm thinking about how much we've both changed, and how some things somehow still feel the same."
He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the star-dusted sky. "I know what you mean."
He turned to her, his eyes searching hers.
Jack took a deep breath, his expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. "I never stopped thinking about you, Emma. Not a single day went by that I didn't regret how things ended between us."
Emma's breath caught in her throat. Could this be real? Was he really saying the words she had longed to hear for all these years?
He reached for her hand, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "I know I hurt you, Emma. I was young and foolish, and I let my fear get the best of me."
His eyes pleaded with her for understanding. "But I've spent every day since then trying to be a better man, the man you deserved." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, blurring her vision. She began, her voice thick with emotion. The words caught in her throat, the dam of her carefully constructed composure threatening to break. S1, Jack.
He squeezed her hand gently, his touch a silent plea for her to continue. "It's okay, Emma. Take your time."
She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I never stopped loving you either, Jack. Even when I tried to convince myself otherwise. Even when it hurt too much to even think about you."
The look on his face, a mixture of relief and elation, mirrored her own. He breathed, his voice filled with wonder. S2, Emma. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Emma and Jack walked hand in hand towards the parking lot. The reunion was winding down, but for them, it felt like a new beginning.
"I should probably get going."
"I'll walk you to your car, narrator," Emma said, her voice tinged with reluctance. "This isn't over, is it, narrator?" Jack offered, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. They walked in comfortable silence, the weight of the past lifting with each shared glance, each lingering touch. As they reached her car, Jack turned to face her, his eyes filled with a warmth that sent a shiver down her spine.
As she drove away, she glanced back to see him still standing there, watching her, a hopeful smile on his face. S1. Emma smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes for the first time in a long time. "Not if I have anything to say about it,"